Morning, virtual villagers. I'm Kate from What Kate Made. Welcome along to my session this morning. We've got a beautiful day here today, so the light will keep changing as the sun brightens and darkens. Today we're going to have a look at some very simple embroidered felt hearts for Valentine's Day. But if you're not into Valentine's Day, these are a really good crafting activity to get together and do with a group of friends. Very simple, a nice bit of simple embroidery, quite minimal materials, but a scented sachet is lovely if you pop it into your drawers or hang it in your wardrobe. You can do it for men or women, it doesn't matter. Get together with your girlfriends and have a Galentine's Day to do a craft like this. So I will show you the materials we're going to use today. Now, because I'm wanting to make it as simple sewing as possible, I'm using felt simply because it's no fray. It won't fray, and it's very, very easy to cut, to embroider on. It's great. This is navy blue, not a traditional Valentine's colour. You could use red or pink or white quite easily. But I thought, because I wanted to maybe show you something that's just not as Valentine-y, I thought I'd go with the navy blue. Plus, navy blue or any blue looks really good embroidered over with white. There's a Japanese technique called, let me pronounce this properly, sashiko, which is white on blue. It's very simple geometric patterns. But I'm going to just show you a few simple embroidery stitches with this. That's my felt. So I'm going to cut my main hearts out of that. My second, I'll show you the templates. There was a template provided. What you need is basically a heart shape that's a decent size. So that one, and let me just quickly measure it. Where's my ruler disappeared? So from like, it's about, if you can see, it's about 9 centimeters sort of down there. So that's a good size. Your second heart needs to be smaller because this is the contrasting fabric we're going to cut from this, and it needs to sit so you've got a decent margin around the edges to put your embroidery in. Okay, so those are what we're going to use. Right, as I said, no fray. However, the fabric we use in the patterned contrasting fabric is just a cotton, and it does fray. So what I've done is I've ironed on the back some iron-on interfacing. Now, interfacing, I've got a little scrap here, and show you. It's basically just like a fine web, almost. You've probably seen it as things like Wonder Web. It's got a gluey back, and you iron it on, and it sticks to your fabric, and that will prevent some fraying. It won't prevent all the fraying, but a little bit of fray gives you quite a shabby chic look, which we quite like. So those are the materials, the fabrics, and the templates we're using. I've also got here a box of coloured embroidery floss. This is my mini box. It's got in a range of all the colours. You want a contrasting colour for your little heart. Scent wise, I've got here vanilla and lavender, and also a little bit chamomile, which I found. I wanted to show you this little tip. If you're getting these little bottles of essential oil, so this is my bottle of chamomile, there was only a couple of drops left in the bottom. So my demo one, which I'll show you in a minute, I used this. But if you look closely, because it was empty, but there was still a tiny bit of oil inside it, I rolled up a cotton wool pad and popped it in. Now, I did that a couple of days ago, and it's absorbing what's left of the oil, and I'll be able to put that into a scented sachet to provide the scent. And use up all the oil. I don't like to waste anything. Right, I didn't do what I was supposed to do at the beginning and show you the one I made earlier. So this is what we're making today. So as you can see, it's in this nice pale green felt. I haven't done both sides. I've only done one side, but that was just for quickness. You can do both hearts, embellish them and embroider them. So if I can get close to the camera, you can see I've put blanket stitch around the edge, which holds, it's really good holding way of seaming the sides if you haven't got a sewing machine. I've done like a little running stitch through the fabric heart to hold it on. I've done, it's difficult for me to see and you to see. I've done a zigzag all the way out on the, around the outside edge of the heart, just a little bit of embellishment, and then right on the corners I've just done 3 little daisy stitches, chain stitches that make look like little leaves. There's a hanging ribbon, so you can hang it if you want to, and I've attached that with a little button which has got a little red heart on it. So that's what we're making, and it smells of chamomile. It's gorgeous. Nice under your pillow at night time. Chamomile promotes sleep. The other thing I've done on this one, which you can do if you have more time, I have done a backstitched over the stems of the flowers on this piece of fabric, just to add a little bit more interest to it. So I did get quite carried away. It's very therapeutic. So that is what we're going to make. But we're going to use the navy blue felt and this lovely dark flowery fabric. I haven't got much of that left now. What else do we need? You need a little bit of quilter's wadding to stuff it with. That gives it a little bit of bounce. I've also used a cotton wool pad soaked with my essential oil inside it to give it the scent. And you can always refresh the scent by adding a few more drops of essential oil to it. I find acrylic doesn't hold the scent as much because it doesn't absorb, whereas the cotton pad does absorb the oil right into it. What else have I got here? I've got ribbons and buttons. You can use beads. You can use all sorts of embellishments. The one thing I haven't got here, I'll go and get them now, is my needles. Bear with me a minute. So this is my little sewing station. In here I've got needles and I've got scissors and all sorts of embroidery bits. So because my eyesight is not good, I tend to use a very, I don't know if you can see that either. It's got quite a large eye, my needle, and it needs to have a sharp point. Some embroidery needles are blunt ended, but it needs to have a sharp point to get through several layers of fabric. Now, let me readjust my camera setup so you can see what my hands are doing. So just bear with me a second. Just have to untighten a lot of bits and tighten other bits and move the camera pointing downwards. Just make sure that's not going to move. And I'm also going to, can we just move that so that I know where my hands are going to go so you can see me. Right, and I'm just going to see if I can get you up live. So if you want to make a comment, you want to ask a question, give me a wave. I'd love to know that you're all out there. So let's, without further ado, let's begin. I'm just conscious you might not be able to see my hands. So we're going to start with our felt. We're having trouble with the dark colours. It shows all the bits. We want, I'm just going to adjust this camera slightly. Just bear with me. I just think you're not seeing quite everything. There we go. That's better. We want to cut out 2 hearts the same. So the easiest way to do that is to fold the fabric and cut through 2 layers. Now, if you have a chalk pen or anything like that, you can draw around it. I'm just going to cut around the template because I don't have a light coloured pen. I tend to use these, which are heat erasable gel pens. They're great for drawing on fabric because you can just run the iron over them and it disappears. But I'm going to just cut around my card template. If you've cut your templates out of paper, you can pin them on, which makes it a little bit easier. But I'm just going to go for it. It is a little bit awkward, a little bit wiggly, but you can then trim your shapes once you've finished your cutting. So these bits, don't throw them away. I save all my bits of offcuts felt and use them for stuffing things. So there's my 2 hearts. I've just got a slightly raggy edge there, so I'll just give that a little bit of a trim. I think the other one's just there and a little bit on the corner. Okay, so those are my 2 felt hearts. Now, same with the fabric. I'm going to cut 2. I'm going to do both sides the same. So I'm going to fold it. Now this time, where's my other template gone? Covered it up with the felt. I can draw on this because it's a light colour, so we can see it. I'm just going to position that. I don't like to waste any fabric, so I'll use my heat erasable gel pen to draw my heart. The other thing you could use, if you're not wanting to sew too much, you could use Bondaweb. Bondaweb, if you've used Wonderweb to take hems up, Bondaweb is like the same thing but on a sheet, and you can use it to you iron it on, and then you draw on the paper and cut your shape out, and then you peel the paper backing off, and you get a sticky side, and then you lay that down and you iron it on and it sticks. It works reasonably well. It's not as permanent. Quite often when I do a plique like this, I will iron it on and then stitch over it, because it isn't always permanent if you just iron it. So I'm going round my smaller heart. Don't worry about precise cutting, because in this kind of shabby chic look, a little bit of what do you call it? Not precision is good. So there we go. That's our 2 fabric hearts that are going to contrast. I'm just going to give that a little trim around the edge to get those tiny bits of interfacing. That's where it's creased. So I'm going to place my hearts on. I'm quite pleased with it. I quite like this fabric. Now, if remember when I said earlier about embellishing some of the embroidering over some of the pattern on the fabric, I used this fabric for another embroidery design, and I went around all the flowers and the stalks and the leaves and everything, and it looked lovely. It was a lot of hard work though. Got a slightly flat edge there, but that'll be fine. So I'm just going to set one of these to one side, and I'm just going to work on one because both sides are going to be the same, so you will get the idea. Now, as I said before, white looks really good on navy blue. However, what I'm going to do is pick out some of the colours that are in the fabric. So I like this bright pink. I haven't quite got a colour that's similar, but or exactly the same. But I might go with a little bit. I don't know. I might not use that one. I might go for lighter, brighter colours. This pink here, we'll go with that one. And this sort of bluey grey. Actually, go with grey. Maybe not. Maybe that one with sort of green in it. So those 3 are nice colours. Those are the ones I'm going to go with. So I'll probably use this one to do the blanket stitch edge, because that needs to be nicely contrasting. And I'll probably use this one to attach my heart. And this one I'll use for the zigzagging and the other embellishments. So when you're working with embroidery floss, first thing I'm going to do though is pop a pin to hold my heart on, because so it doesn't move about. So we decided this one was going to be our running stitch round. So I'm going to do a simple running stitch all the way around my heart just to hold it in place on there. So when you're using embroidery floss, I'll just put that piece to one side because that's already split. It's got 6 strands, this particular kind of floss. What you do is you just split it in 2. Now if you want a really thick stitch, use it as it stands, but I don't want it to be that thick, so you split the strands like that, so you've got 3 on each side, and then you cut off the length you want and just pull them apart. It's quite simple. So what I've already got here, because I've used this colour for another job, is already split into a 3, and I'm going to find my needle and thread it up. I normally thread all my needles before we come on air, but I haven't today because I wasn't sure what colours I was going to use. So you just thread your needle and put a knot in the end, just an ordinary slip knot, not a slip knot, I don't know what it's called, this sort of knot. And just, I usually, if it's thin, I put two knots, one on top of the other, just so that it's not going to pull right through all the fabric. So we've got a few watchers. We've got Irene, who's a regular watcher, although I haven't seen you for a while, Irene. Hello. And Yvonne, watching from Devon. So I'm going to come up from behind so that all my knots are inside. And I'm going to be in about ½ centimetre in from the edge of my fabric. So it will, you might get a little bit of frame, but it'll look decorative more than anything. So running stitch is just simply, you go up and down, keeping a nice even distance between same size stitches and even distance between them. Up and down, and we're going to do this all the way around our heart to hold the fabric heart onto the felt heart. Now once you get an idea of your distances and the length of your stitches, you can sort of just do a up and under like that, and it'll make it a little bit quicker. It doesn't have to be perfect because we are looking for this, as I keep repeating, this shabby chic effect. And so the embroidery stitches we're going to be using today are quite simple and quite versatile. If you've done hand embroidery before, you can obviously go as elaborate as you want. But as I say, we're trying to keep it simple. So this running stitch, or you can also use, it's sometimes called a gathering stitch as well, because if you're gathering something, you can use it. We'll be using back stitch to make our zigzag, blanket stitch to join the 2 hearts together. Now blanket stitch is a nice one, very versatile. If you're not got a sewing machine, it's a really good way of attaching 2 things together and providing a decorative edge at the same time. So for instance, if you were patching something, applique shapes onto another piece of fabric, blanket stitch is lovely for the edge. I'm going to show you a chain stitch or lazy daisy stitch, because we call it, I think they call it daisy stitch when it's just single ovals rather than chain stitches, generally a long strand of stitching. Right, so that's us all the way around. It's quite a subtle colour, that, but it's nice. When you get to the back, all I usually do is loop under one of the stitches and then go back through the loop, and it gives you a little knot that is fairly stable. Just cut that short. So that's our first bit of embroidery. Very simple. It's just holding the heart on and providing a subtle colour. I'm going to leave the pin in it just for now. So the next thing I'm going to show you is I put a little zigzag edge. It doesn't have to be zigzag. I might even make it like a scallop edge. If I get my heart out that I did, it's easier to see. Excuse me. The one I was holding it up. This little zigzag edge all the way around. Beads might be nice. You could put beads on it. I'm going to use the bright pink because that will show up really well. So I'm going to take off a piece that is about 18 inches of the pink. I'm going to split it. So I've got enough to do. I've got two. So that'll probably be enough to do all the way around. Sometimes this can be a little bit difficult. It's much easier if you've got fingernails. Is that 3? I've got new glasses as well, so I can see much better. Close to. So this is how I tend to split it. You do get a bit of a twist, so you do have to be careful you're not getting in a knot. And quite often when you're sewing with it as well, it's a good idea to let it dangle a little bit, so the twist comes out. Otherwise you end up with knots at the back of your work. Now the zigzag is quite easy to do. A scallop would be a little, which more like a wavy line, would be a little bit more difficult and require smaller stitches. So I'm just going to show you the zigzag. And again, you can do it in an up and under method. So my heart's it's a little bit skew with, but we'll manage. So I'm going to start at the point here, or the indent. So again, I'm going to leave my knot on the back, and I'm going to go up at an angle to make like an angled line like that. And then this is kind of back stitch. So back stitch, you go back over a gap. So I'm going to bring my needle up there and go back to the top of that stitch to create the point of the zigzag. And then I'm going to come up here. So I'm coming up at the point again and going down there. Now, as you get up working at this, like we did before, you can do an up and under movement. See what I mean about it getting tangled? Let me just dangle that off camera to get the twist out of it. You can do an up and under movement. So you're basically going from point to point like that. So you're going to go along and come up there. Just catching my pin. And then down there and up there. So you're sort of judging similar length of stitch it. And just keep working your way around. Doesn't have to be perfect. We just want a nice decorative effect. I'm going to have to take that pin out. It's catching all the time. And work your way around your heart. So, who's all out there? I know I've got a few people watching. Is Valentine's Day something that you normally celebrate? I know it's difficult. It's a difficult one. It's like Mother's Day in that if you haven't got your mum anymore and you don't have your partner, it can be difficult for singletons. So I think this is where I heartily approve of the Galentine movement, where, you know, spend the day with your friends. It's a kind of love. It doesn't have to be romantic love, does it? Everybody has a best friend or someone they like to spend time with. And crafting is a great social activity. I love crafting socially. I spend a lot of time doing workshops, and even this. I mean, although I can't see you all, you can see me, I can't see you. It feels like you're in the room with me. So I love it. I love to well, as you can tell, I never stop talking. This is going really well. I might not have time. I might not go all the way around it because it might just be a bit boring to watch. I always have half finished projects when I do a demonstration like this. I always think, I move on to the next stage, and then leaves it half finished. And someday I'm going to have to, then I think I have to set aside a day in the week to finish it. As it happens, I'm actually doing this again tomorrow as a live sort of hands-on face-to-face workshop with a group. So anything I don't finish today, I'll finish tomorrow. That was a really good estimation of the thread look. It's just, that piece is just on one side of my heart. So rather than let it get too short. So this is interesting when you do backstitch this way. You're getting 2 tram lines on the back, which are also very decorative, but we won't be seeing that. So I'm gonna carry on so you get the full effect of how it's going to look, because if I only do half of it, it's going to look silly. Now this is a time when you're doing this, it's a nice mindful activity. I find it very soothing, and this is why I get carried away. I was up here for a couple of hours yesterday, just going on, and I got carried away and started outlining all the pattern on the fabric. So we just carry on up the other side with our under and over method, which makes it just a little bit quicker. No, I've gone wrong there somehow. There we go. That's me back on track. I like the contrast between the navy blue and the pink. It stands up much better. The one I did with the pale green, I used like a cream colour, and it's more subtle. This is much more in your face, in a good way. So I'm thinking about scents. I use essential oils. You don't have to use essential oils. You can use lavender, dried lavender, or dried chamomile flowers, and just put that inside your sachet. I do find these days that a lot of the lavender you buy commercially, it doesn't hold its scent, which is why I tend to use an essential oil. I'm using cotton wool pads, as I said, to carry the oil, essentially. A great way of carry as an oil carrier that lasts for ages is to use rice, because the dried grains of rice absorb the oil and then release it slowly, and your scent lasts for ages. But you can always refresh your scented sachets with a few more drops of oil. Because we're using the cotton wool pad, you just drop it onto the oil onto the sachet, and it'll absorb into the cotton wool pad inside. So lavender is nice in your clothes, makes everything smell nice. If it's for a gentleman, cedar wood. Now cedar wood is traditionally used to stop moths as well. You don't see much in the way of moths in clothing these days, probably because we have a lot of synthetic fabrics. But cedar wood and sandalwood particular were used for repelling moths. So, and they're both nice sort of masculine scents, very savory scents. I'm quite fond of them myself. I like to mix, if you mix either of them with bergamot particularly, or orange, it's a really nice masculine, but not too masculine. It's difficult to say. I make soap with a mixture with those in, because my husband will use it. He doesn't like flowery scents, but I like it as well. So it's a good one for everybody. There we go. So just trim these longer ends off so they're not sticking out. That's our first lot of embroidery, and as you can see, it's brightened it up quite considerably. Now when we do the blanket stitch, it's going to come in about half a centimetre in from the edge, so we do have a little bit of space. Here's one I did earlier. I put these little lazy daisy stitches like little leaves at those two corners. So I'm going to do that again. I might choose a different colour. I might do them in a green. That's a nice sort of light green like that. And again, I've still got some thread already split, so that's dead handy. That should be enough. Quite often when I'm doing embroidering with this, you split it off and you don't use it all, so it's handy when you come back to it if you've already got a bit that's split. I'm just conscious of the time. Actually, what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to embroider it anymore because I want to be able to show you the blanket stitch. So I'm going to take my next, my other heart, and show you the blanket stitch, which will fasten them together. If you are going to put in a ribbon, now would be the time to insert it into in between your two hearts. So you would put it there. I'll come back to it and show you again when I've shown you the blanket stitch. So as always, we're just putting a couple of little knots in the end of our thread to stop it coming right through. Now I learned something. I've always done blanket stitch in a certain way, and this weekend I learned a better way to do it, in my opinion. So you come up from the middle. Actually, we're going to go from the middle to the back. So our end, our knot is inside our hearts, and your first stitch is from the back to the front, and then where I'm just going to put my finger in it, where you get this loop like that, put your needle through it, and that will anchor it and give you your first stitch. Now, blanket stitch, you'll have seen it on the edges of blankets. What it does is it you use little stitches going up, vertical stitches all the way around, but it also has a stitch running along the top. And the way you do it is you want to be evenly spaced and the same length of stitch. Pull it up from the back to the front, and then I'm going to keep my finger in this loop because then I need to go under the loop. And what that does is it creates that little stitch on the top and it gives you an edge. So I'm going to show you that again. So I'm going to come up the same distance from, roughly the same distance between stitches, pull that loop, pass my needle through it, and as you pull it up to the top, you get it closes up, you get that nice little bit at the top, and then you just carry on. So same distance apart, same length of stitch, pull it through and carry on. And I'm going to do quite a bit of it because you need to see how well it holds it together. Again, you might end up getting a little bit of a twist in your thread like that, which you might then need to I'll let it dangle off camera to undo the twist that you sometimes get. I lost my needle, it's just dropped off. I think today is going to be a long session. Last time I did a session, it ended up being short because it was really quick. But this time I think we're going to be taking up all of our allotted time. I'm going to speed up a bit now, since you had the gist of it. I love this contrast in light threads and dark felt, and choosing threads that pick up your colours in your fabric as well. That's really nice. We've got another, I'm just going to say a quick hello to Helen, who's watching from Buckinghamshire. Hope you're enjoying this, Helen. Is anybody actually crafting along? I mean, we tend to not get people crafting along, and I do get a lot of people who watch it later, or go back to it and actually do it, craft along them, but not very often live. Is there anybody crafting along live today? That would be interesting. And again, I've been quite lucky with my length of thread, in that it's going to go halfway around. You do need to leave a gap, obviously, to stuff it. So I would get about 2/3 of the way around. So sort of halfway up this slope before I stuff it, because that's, you've got enough that it's going to hold together, but not too much that you've got a tiny gap to go through. So blanket stitch, very, very, very versatile. I'll keep going with this piece of thread. Might be a little bit tricky this at the point. I'm going to do it like this and run 3 stitches in the same place to go around the corner, and that is more or less that piece of thread done. I don't want to go, actually I could probably do a few more. You don't want to have not enough to wrap round you, to loop round. You don't want to leave it too short an end. So at that point I'm going to pull that through and tuck that inside. Now I'll just cut another piece of this off because I'm going to need it to carry on with. 1, 2, 3. How many is there? Split that off. See, this is what I mean when you've just got when you get the twist in it, you can sometimes get knots. I might have to, oh no, there we go. I was going to say I might have to cut that off, but it's going to unravel itself. Maybe not. Right. So stuffing. Now, as I said before, I'm going to use a little bit of this acrylic wadding. But I also, you don't want it too thick, so I just tend to sort of spread it out a bit. I also want to use my soaked piece of cotton padding, so I'm going to just break off a little bit of this and go into the corner. So what I'm going to do is put the wadding in and then put the cotton wool padding on top. So I said earlier that I'd my chamomile scented bottle that had very little left in it, and I put this in it, this cotton wool pad. I wish you could smell it because it smells heavenly. So that has soaked up what was left in that bottle. I'm going to just slip that in there on top of the wadding. So that's my scented pad. So if when I refresh the scent, I'm going to drip it on there. Now, I think that's probably just a tiny bit more wadding. Well, you don't want it over padded. You just want enough to give your heart a little bit of shape. So it is a little bit more difficult now, the rest of the sewing, because you've got that bulk inside it. But let's just finish it off. And again, we're going to go through the back and leave the knot inside. And our first stitch is front to back, is over the top like this, just to get us started and anchor that and then from then on we come back to front. Again, even stitches apart, and through that loop. I'm actually doing it back to front now. It's so relaxing, this, even when I'm doing it in front of other people. Essentially, I just like it's just very therapeutic. Little bit, could be a little bit stressful if you're not used to doing it, but once you get used to doing it, you're just very mindful. All crafting, I think, is mindful. For me, it is anyway. I can feel my stress melting away when I'm doing something that requires my full concentration. And I think that's the key, isn't it? If you have to concentrate on it, you're not thinking about other things. Your mind's not wandering off at tangents and worrying about, you know, the cost of living or whether you've got enough milk. I need to go out and go do some shopping today. Can't bear shopping at the weekend. Now that I'm retired, I'm very intolerant of other people shuffling about with their kids, which sounds, at one point soon I'll probably have grandchildren, so then I'll have to take them with me shopping. But for now, I also have two new dogs, newish dogs. We've fostered two rescue puppies. Well, they're not puppies, but they behave like puppies. They're little Shih Tzus. I mean that in the kindest possible way. So where I'm going with this is that I need to do a bit of shopping for them. The weather's been so awful. It's been really hard because they've only been allowed in the garden until now. Now they're fully vaccinated. We can start taking them out for walks this week, but the weather's so terrible. They just get so muddy. Nearly done. So I'm not going to go all the way to the end because I'm going to put a bit of ribbon in. Actually, the green, this ribbon that I got for the green one is quite nice on this. What else the colours I've got? I've also got this, actually got this velvet ribbon in a dark red that might be quite nice. So I'm going to cut enough for a hanging loop. Just cut that there. And then we're going to tuck that inside our heart, just where there's that little gap there. So I should have done this right at the beginning probably. I'm just going to hold it in while I do my last blanket stitch, which isn't going through it because I'm going to fasten that on with a button. I just wanted to get it inside the heart. So then I'm going to fasten that off with a little knot. And then I'm going to push that inside and bring it up there, and then we can cut it off and it'll disappear inside. There we go, so you can't see it. So this ribbon, I want to get a button that is going to look nice with my different colours here. I have a massive stash of buttons. These are all little wooden ones. Don't want it too big. I did spot one with a heart then, and now it's gone. Although that one's quite nice with flowers on. Now, unfortunately, because buttons have little holes, I have to use finer needles. So this is always the struggle to get it threaded up. And I'm going to use just a normal sewing thread. And if I lean back far enough, push my glasses up, I can see the eye just about. There we go. So usually I double my thread and knot it because that gives me a nice anchor base. So this little button has a nice flower and butterfly on it, so that's quite cute. Now I'm going to go, it's going to be there just below the point of the needle doesn't want to go through now. Actually, I'm going to slightly amend this, and I'm going to push that right through from there, but it doesn't want to go through. I don't know why. There we go. And then I'm going to thread my button on it, through one hole, down through the other, and back through all the layers. This needle's not very good. For some reason it doesn't want to go through all my layers. I'll end up pushing it through like this and then it'll bend. Well, that's very strange that the needle doesn't want to go through, but you'll get the idea that the button goes through the fabric and through the ribbon and holds it all together. I don't know whether it's the cotton wool. It's maybe the cotton wool. Yeah, it's maybe the cotton wool it doesn't want to go through. Now my button's upside down. I think it's the cotton wool in the... I'm going to go through this a couple of times. Like that. So then I probably should have used a darker thread. I'm going to go up through my ribbon. And then fasten off those ends. So not very tidy that at the back, but you can see the effect. Now the other thing you could do is, if you're not putting a hanging loop on, you could put a button in the middle, which will give it a sort of slightly quilted effect. So that's our Valentine's heart. You can see how the blanket stitch looks quite just as decorative on the back as the front. That's the one I made earlier. They both smell of chamomile, which is quite nice. Just let me move the camera. Bear with me a second. It's very... Let me see my face now. Oh, you're going. I do get a little bit of movement in this tripod. Right, so that was our Valentine's hearts. I hope you enjoyed that session. 2 Valentine's hearts. I really like this one. I really like that one better. I think it's the dark and then the bright colours on it. And that one's a little bit more subtle. But both of those, a smell of chamomile, smell lovely. So that's me done for Valentine's hearts, or Galentine's hearts, if you're doing them with friends rather than doing them for a partner. I'm back in 2 weeks' time, and I think we're doing button flowers made from buttons. Interesting, nice. Coming up to Mother's Day, probably. I'm not quite sure when Mother's Day is. It's a nice idea to make a little permanent bouquet for your mum, or your mum who's not a mum, or your best friend, or whoever. So thank you so much for everybody for watching. I'm just seeing a comment from Pauline, who says she's watching from Dorset, not sewing along, but sewing buttons on a knitted cardigan. Well done. I mean, I'm very envious of people who knit garments, because I'm not a good knitter. I crochet, but garments just beyond me. I tend to be toys and blankets, things with straight lines I'm good at. So well done, Pauline. And thank you everybody for watching, and Ali too. I will see you all again in, I think it's 2 weeks time, with the button flowers. And it's clouded over and gone wet here now, so enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you again soon.